Recording in progress.
May the 9th, Thursday, special meeting. Rules hearing. Okay, please.
David C. Sanchez. John Buffington.
Here.
Bill Smith.
Here.
Petrie.
Here. Allegiance.
Yeah.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Approval of the agenda. Any,
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
second? Petrie. All in favor, aye? Aye. Passes. Okay. Going to turn it over to our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission. I will now bring the rules hearing to order and better for the public as well. My name is Daniel Ross Rubin, Assistant Attorney General. I will be acting as the presiding officer for this rule hearing. The purpose of this hearing is for the commission to receive public comment on proposed amendments to the commission's current rules and regulations. The commission welcomes everyone present at this hearing. Let the record show that the following commissioner members are commissioners. Would you please introduce yourselves again for the benefit of the folks watching from home?
John Buffington.
Billy Smith. Petrie.
Thank you. Again, I am here to advise the commission and conduct the hearing. Also present are Ismael Trejo, the commission executive director, in-house general counsel Richard Bustamante, and Denise Chavez, the commission law clerk. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of the New Mexico Horse Racing Act, NMSA 1978, section 60-1A-1 through -30, the Open Meetings Act, sections 1015-1 through 1015-4, and the New Mexico State Rules Act, NMSA 1978, section 14-4-1 through 11. The legislative provision authorizing and mandating the commission adopt administrative rules is section 60-1A-4B1 of the Horse Racing Act. It is also held in accordance with the State Rules Act at 14-4-1 et sec. The New Mexico State Rules Act regulates rulemaking proceedings and activities which are before the commission and boards. You may, for the benefit of the public, please note that you can contact the Secretary of State's office for further information on that point. Please note that the commission will separately deliberate and take action on this proposed rule at the close of our hearing. I ask that the commissioners refrain from comment until such time and limit themselves to any questions of any witnesses, saving time for the due questions and comment during deliberations. So if you are appearing in person, I ask that you please sign the attendance sheet, which will then become an exhibit at the end of the hearing. If you are attending virtually, we will have an electronic record of who is logging in, but we ask that your login info include your full name, although we do not require it. Because this rule hearing is a hybrid meeting, we have attendees in person and virtually. And as presiding officer, I am requesting that anyone who is present for this rule hearing through video and intends to comment on any of the proposed rule amendments, please raise your hand using the raise hand icon in the reactions option on Zoom. Our clerk, Ms. Chavez, will unmute you on Zoom at the appropriate time so that you can make your comments on the proposed rule. So if you are physically present here in the boardroom, and I see a few people here who are, and would like to make a comment on the proposed rule amendments, please raise your hand at the appropriate time and I will call on you when it is your turn to comment. Before making your comments to the proposed rule, we ask that all public commenters please state full name, affiliation, if any, and the proposed rule that you wish to comment on, although we just have one rule. Ms. Chavez is going to keep a list of everyone who has submitted either a written or oral comment, and that list will become part of the record of this rule hearing. So this is a formal proceeding, and as such, it will be recorded. The recording will become part of the rule hearing record. Therefore, when a person is recognized to address the commission, again, we ask that you identify yourself for the record each time you address the commission and to speak loudly and clearly so that the recorder can pick up your comments. This hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Copies of a draft exhibit of all written comments received by the commission is available at the front of the building. In addition, I anticipate that our staff here will introduce a copy of all written comments as an exhibit. Commission staff will present all their exhibits to the commission. I will then allow questions from members of the commission on the exhibits and then by the public. As presiding officer, I will then rule the admissibility of the exhibits offered for admission. Exhibits admitted into evidence are available for review by members of the public and will be made available on the commission's website and to members of the public upon their request. So we will only have one rule to address today, which makes our job a little more straightforward. However, for those of you wishing to make public comment, or even the commissioners, if you wish to refer to other rules as you feel like they are relevant here, if they reasonably relate, please do so. The commission does not follow the rules of evidence in this rule hearing. In the interest of efficiency, as hearing officer, I do reserve the right to limit testimony that I deem irrelevant, redundant, or unduly repetitious. The decision as to whether such testimony is irrelevant, redundant, or unduly repetitious shall be made by me as the presiding officer. After a person has provided comment, commission members will be permitted to question that person in a limited fashion. Any member of the audience wishing to question that person may do so after being recognized by me as the presiding officer and after, again, identifying themselves for the record. To the extent, oh, never mind. Okay, at the conclusion of this rule hearing, the commission will conduct the deliberations and discussions in open session and perhaps take final action on the rule, such as amending, adopting, or tabling it. Okay, so we are ready to move forward. Mr. Bustamante, on behalf of staff of the commission, do you have any exhibits to introduce into evidence?
Presiding Officer Rubin, the commission has the following exhibits to enter into evidence. Exhibit 1 is the legal notice published in the New Mexico Register, the New Mexico Sunshine Portal, and the Albuquerque Journal regarding the proposed rule change. Exhibit 2 is the notice sent to interested parties regarding the rule hearing and meeting and proposed rule change. And Exhibit 3 is the proposed amendment to Commission Rule 15.2.710 NMAC, which is entitled simulcast wagering.
Thank you, Mr. Bustamante. Just a quick question. Do one of these exhibits also reflect providing notice to the Legislative Council Service?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first to the commission, are there any questions you have for Mr. Bustamante on the proposed exhibits?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Let me then go to folks who wish to make comments on the exhibits. We'll start with those in the room. Anyone in the room who wish to make public comment on the exhibits? Yes. If you could, I think the best way to do this so everyone can hear you, ma'am, if we could have a little microphone put there. Of course. And then if you could give your name and any affiliation.
Denise Chambliss. I'm a member of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association, and I've held a valid New Mexico racing owner's license since 2012.
Okay, please proceed, Ms. Chambliss.
I don't do good at public speaking, but I went ahead and prepared one. I speak today in opposition of the New Mexico Racing Commission's attempt to repeal New Mexico Administrative Code 15.2.7.10, simulcast wagering, and specifically the provision that reads, no person shall attempt to conduct wagering on the results of a simulcast unless an agreement has been executed between the host and guest track operators. The agreement has been approved by the New Mexico Horsemen's Association, and the agreement is filed with the commission. This proposed change takes away the rights of the New Mexico Horsemen who have represented the New Mexico Horsemen since the 60s to view the incoming signal simulcast for off-track wagering. The Interstate Horse Racing Act by definition, preempts the current NMRC's rule provision. The IHA does not preclude a host state or the NMRC from regulating incoming signals for off-track wagering purposes. Indeed, the IHA expressly endows the NMRC as the Off-Track Racing Commission with the legal authority to refuse or grant consent to the incoming simulcast. The IHA specifically states there cannot be any interstate off-track wagers accepted within New Mexico without all the consents, including the NMRC's consent. So the NMRC is changing this rule because the racetracks or anyone else are saying that the current rule conflicts with the IHA. That is an incorrect statement as a matter of law. The NMRC has the power and the authority to refuse to give its consent to any proposed incoming simulcast wagering as a matter of federal law. The fact that the current rule provides the New Mexico Horsemen, specifically the NMHA, a right to review and approve incoming simulcast contracts is no different than what the state of Arizona has done by placing a condition on incoming simulcasts, requiring them to offer equality to all. The state of New Mexico could place any conditions it wants on incoming simulcasts because it has the veto power under the IHA to stop for any reason. Nothing in the IHA prohibits the NMRC from leaving the current rule in place. For this reason, the new proposed rule provision does not really change anything, and certainly not for any legal reasoning. The only thing it does is target the New Mexico Horsemen and tries to diminish their influence on simulcasting in the state. The question remains, why is this rule being proposed? The NMRC Commission mission statement reads, I'm sure you all know it, but I'm going to read it one more time for everybody on Zoom. We exist to provide regulation in an equitable manner to New Mexico's parimutuel horse racing industry and to protect the interest of wagering patrons and the state of New Mexico in a manner which promotes a climate of economic prosperity for horsemen, horse owners, and racetrack management. In the current climate, is the NMRC promoting economic prosperity? Why change this rule? Or is the NMRC changing this rule because it wants to continue its quest to dilute the NMHA? A board consisting solely of horsemen in New Mexico who seek to foster the best interests of live racing, horsemen and horse owners, as well as racetrack prosperity? Why would you not want to consider all interested party views on the matter, especially the horsemen that the NMRC is supposed to protect and regulate? The ultimate question is, why is this rule being proposed by the NMRC, and why is it moving in the opposite direction that the NMRC's mission statement? The new rule makes reference only to the IHA and adds nothing to the law. The IHA already governs the process of incoming signals. The new rule therefore cannot have any motive behind it but to establish a policy that horse racing within New Mexico no longer matters and the racing participants no longer matter. The horsemen indirectly, the breeders' views about maintaining a thriving racing industry simply don't matter anymore to the NMRC, at least not to this commission. I cannot fathom that such a policy change to the NMAC is consistent with New Mexico statutory law. One thing the NMAC rule does is it extends a critically important policy check to the New Mexico horsemen. This check gives them the right to review and approve proposed incoming simulcast contracts, subject to possible NMRC reversal if the horsemen disapprove of the incoming simulcast. Racetracks may not like that, but the horsemen have the right within the state administrative code to make perfectly good. It makes perfectly good horse racing policy sense. The horsemen, more than any other group or entity, including the racetracks, are interested in protecting the entire sport of horse racing. This balance allows for horsemen to continue to negotiate for better conditions, improvements at the tracks for their consent to simulcast, much like the concessions that the tracks had to make to get slot machines. The goal is not to become a casino, but to improve the quality of racing and making racing affordable sport that many of the families in New Mexico rely on to make a living. Horsemen and breeders' aligned interests should not, from a policy perspective, be ignored or trumped by casinos who have abandoned the reason that slots were allowed at the tracks in the first place.
Jim, if I may interrupt just for one moment. As per the agenda and the notice, the goal here is to limit public comment to 5 minutes each.
Already gone?
You've gone a little over 5. How much more do you have, do you think? I see a lot of papers there.
No, there's just a page and a quarter.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I can stop if you want.
No.
Okay.
Like you're wrapping up soon, that's fine.
Okay. At the same time, the racing is being destroyed means to mitigate their expenses while maximizing slot profits. States that provide protection to in-state racing and breeding industries have recognized these important policies, perspectives, and therefore often grant their horsemen and breeders precisely the rights that New Mexico horsemen currently possess under the current rules provisions. Protection of live racing should be at the highest and greatest concern for the NMRC. The current rules provision, which grants the horsemen a say in what incoming simulcast signals are allowed into Mexico, is not a far-fetched, overreaching, or illegal scheme under the IHA. Rather, it's a good policy objective to uphold and protect the in-state racing and breeding industries. Let me close by saying it has always been the NMHA who has negotiated these simulcast contracts. These agreements were fair and there was growth in this industry. New Mexico horsemen have never asked for any additional money. Our goal was for the tracks to comply with the law and to have a fair and impartial race condition, horse races, to have sound racing surfaces and racetracks, and to have clean barn areas and in good repair. It is the job and the responsibility of the NMRC to ensure that these principles are followed. Please do the right thing. Do right by the New Mexico horsemen and reject this instant change that you're trying to do with New Mexico in NMAC 15.2.7.10.
Thank you, Ms. Chambliss. I do see one of the, is there any other public comment? Okay, we have one more person in the room here. And I know that I was looking for comment on the exhibits, but it seemed like yours is more calculated towards the rules.
Mine is on the rules in general.
Okay, is this about?
Do you want this?
If you want it, well, it's been read into the record.
Okay.
So to have it in written form would be, I think, duplicitous. Okay. Yes, please.
She covered almost everything I had to say, so
Okay.
I'll add a few things. I'm going to wing it. I didn't bring notes. My name is Pam Senna, and I am an owner and a breeder. I'm also the secretary treasurer of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association. I wanted to bring this down to a little more personal level about the rule change, and that being that you all have the last word on everything, and we respect that and we know that. So it is a little puzzling why we're changing it. And I just want to go forward from today, knowing that you are making decisions based on your experience and your passion for our sport that we all love. I mean, I know that y'all have been breeders and you've raced horses, and now you have the privilege of serving on the racing commission. So you are, I don't like the word govern. I like that you are the guardian. You're the guardian of our sport. And so we are hoping that you will do the very best thing for our sport of racing. We have the horsemen at the tracks and the gallop boys and the owners and the trainers, and all they want to do is run their horses. That's all they want to do is run their horses. And then we have the New Mexico Horsemen's Association. And all we want to do is make sure the track is safe and the stalls are safe for the horses. And everybody gets a chance to run, whether they have a top horse or they have a little $5,000 claimer. So that's where we are. Plus we do medical benefits. You know who we are. But above us are the racetracks. And we want the racetracks to absolutely make a fortune, because as they make a fortune, it trickles down to the rest of us. And then above us are you all. And we just need you to make the decision based on your love for the sport. I know you still have the passion, and that we do the right thing by the rules. And I'm probably known around this state already as Pam the Peacemaker. I've been to your office, the Attorney General's office, and I've been to the Capitol. I've been to all the tracks. I haven't been able to sit down with any of the commissioners yet, but I'm just praying for peace and to promote horse racing and to get it back like it used to be when we all could work together, because that's the only way to do it. And eliminating, if the goal is to eliminate horse racing one day, that doesn't help anyone. I mean, we just want everyone to prosper. We want everyone to follow their dreams, but mostly just guide with your hearts and the love that brought you into this. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so let us go now to folks who wish to make public comment virtually. So, Ms. Chavez, I see my eyesight's not real good here, but I see a few raised hands. If you want to unmute one at a time, the raised hands for us, and they can identify themselves and make. Now, this is comment on the exhibits, but as we've seen, there's been a few. The comment we've heard so far is really going to the merits of the rule itself. So I'm not going to like be strict about that. I just ask that people don't make the same comment twice.
See any raised hands?
Oh, okay. Then that's my eyesight. Okay.
There's not one raised hand?
I thought I saw one.
Don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, if you miss one, we're in trouble.
Oh, I see two.
There we go.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you. Can you give us your name and affiliation, if any?
My name is Vanessa Alexander. I'm an investigative researcher and a victim of retaliation by this commission. Today, I am speaking in opposition of the latest intended tampering with the NMAC by this commission. Since this commission's appointments, the New Mexico racing industry has been irreparably damaged, and the New Mexico Racing Commission has become a national laughingstock. The tampering with the NMAC has clearly been done to enrich the racetracks. This commission erasing the New Mexico Horsemen's Association from the NMAC and replacing them with the New Mexico Horse Breeders Association in May of 2022 was outrageous. After having already tampered with the NMAC by doing this change, the Racing Commission announced that in the June of 2022 agenda that they were going to be recognizing the Horse Breeders Association as the official group, the state of New Mexico. Now, I was on the board of the Horse Breeders Association at that time. I know for a fact that several trustees had been plotting and planning and communicating in secret with the racetracks and this commission to achieve this tampering. When the agenda came out in June 2022, after the Breeders Association was already in statute as the new Horsemen's group, these trustees, and I recorded them, lied about their knowledge and involvement with this act. I asked them directly, I asked them succinctly, and I was told that they had absolutely no idea whatsoever that the Racing Commission was planning to do such a thing, nor did they have any idea why such a thing would be on the agenda. These are clearly lies. This is also the definition of organized crime. By planning together to circumvent state and federal law, that is, again, the definition of organized crime. In fact, during our meeting with our attorney for the Horse Breeders Association, Mr. Sanchez, even confirmed that the Racing Commission's actions were a violation of law. And just as I had said over and over and over, for months and months before that, now the breeders were in a position of liability. Of course, the breeders kicked me off the board after that for misconduct of telling them the truth, of being the person that was stating the truth and attempting to end the misleading of the membership. The damage that has been done to this industry by this commission, the tampering with the administrative code, the ignoring of the has been mandated by law to be doing the accounting, reconciliations, and reporting of the millions and millions of dollars in gaming purse funds. This has not been done one time. The commission claims that the records are confidential, yet the Breeders Association has confirmed that there is that there are no records, that they quote unquote declined being the Horsemen's group. The only evidence of the breeders declining this is a letter that was produced but never provided to the commission, never given to the membership, and myself and a couple dozen others have been found absolutely no proof at all that the breeders officially, quote unquote, declined being the Horsemen's group, nor have the breeders done squat in the last 2 years to have themselves removed out of NMAC. And look at what this commission has done. About what, $1 million in hot checks that 2 racinos have written the Horsemen. The Racing Commission will not produce the records of the 2023 and up till current catastrophic breakdowns and injuries of the horses because they have skyrocketed. The other records that this commission refuses to produce are records that show the outstanding incompetence of this commission
Ms. Alexander?
and the
Ms. Alexander, if I may.
corruption.
Ms.
Instead, and you know
Alexander?
what, Mr. Rubin, I would like to applaud you for that ridiculous letter that you wrote to Kentucky. What a
Okay.
fantastic example of the incompetence.
Okay,
And I
Ms.
don't even
Alexander, how much more do you have in terms of comment? Because the goal here is 5 minutes each, and brevity being the soul of wit, I'm curious as to how much longer you think you have.
How much time
more
do I have?
I'm asking how much more time do you think you need?
Oh, I'll talk all day if you'll let me.
I won't let you talk all day. So why don't you wrap it up? A lot of your
Why don't
comments
you tell
are,
me how much time I have, sir?
I'll give you another 2 minutes, ma'am.
Appreciate that. Thank you. The letter that you wrote, Mr. Rubin, was ridiculous. I would love to get an answer as to what dimension of information you got that from and why you would send such a poorly written, clearly incorrect and erroneous, and I'm being very nice about that letter to Kentucky and the other affiliates. Of course, the response to the Racing Commission and to the racetracks of having these simulcast signals pulled is a long time coming, much deserved. And the fact that you referred to the Horsemen's Association as terrorists truly shows what small and petty cowardice is controlling this commission. This latest attempt, when I say attempt, you're going to do it no matter what we say, but to tamper with the NMAC, to enrich your masters, the racetracks, and to self-enrich those of you whose butts are in those chairs. All I can say to you is that we know the truth. We have been watching. Records have been continuing piled, and it is not going to last. There is absolutely no way that you will get away with all of this, because the damage that you are doing is so self-inflicted that you are eating the racing industry alive. Last comments I have, sir.
Okay.
The embezzlement of at least high 6 figures that I've discovered and reported to you on multiple occasions from the Horsemen, from the bookkeeper accounts over a decade that you have not responded to one time except to try to cover your tracks. Your fake investigator wannabe, who is a fraud, Miss Lisa Holmes Johnson Powers, whatever she would like to call herself,
Mr. Rubin, time is
indicated
up.
that the attorney generals and this commission have been aware of a money laundering and fraud investigation that you have been allowing to happen in plain sight for the last decade. If this is the way that you intend to continue to conduct yourselves, all I can say is Dateline NBC eventually. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander, for your public comments. Now, is there anyone else? I see one other raised hand. Mr. Chavez, if you could unmute that person and then they could speak.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please give us your name and affiliation, if any.
Good afternoon. My name's Christine Belt. I am currently an owner. I am a member of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association, as well as a member of the New Mexico Horse Breeders Association. I am pretty new to horse racing, about 4 years now. I love my state, and I'm addicted to the horse racing here now. And as such, I can't, being new to the industry, I haven't been here as long as everybody else that I know, but just those short years, I have seen a decline already from what it was even then to now. And every year it seems like it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And this simulcast issue right now is just another thing taking away from our industry. And I just implore you not to rule against the Horsemen in this issue.
Thank you,
And
Ms. Belt. Oh, okay.
that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belt. All right, is there anyone else with a raised hand, Ms. Chavez?
See no other hands.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bustamante. Well, are there any other exhibits other than 1, 2, and 3 to enter at this time?
No other exhibits. Presiding Officer Rubin.
Okay. And do any of the commissioners wish to question any of the public commenters so far?
No, I'd just like to make one comment. Everything that's been talked about today is in front of the federal court. Whatever the federal court asks us to do, we're going to do. So the issues that we are facing right now are in the courts. Courts make a decision, we will follow their lead.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Okay, therefore I will admit exhibits 1 to 3 into evidence. All right, now I'll open up the floor to members of the audience and to the commissioners for comments on each separate rule. Members of both the commission and the audience may question each witness on being recognized to speak. And discussion by the commission, of course, will then follow the completion of these public comments. So with that, first, does the commission have any questions for staff on the rule, on the proposed rule?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the proposed rule change in lockstep with the federal Gaming Act, the Commerce and Trade Federal Gaming Act? Is it in step with this?
The Horse Racing Act, you mean, sir?
In fact, I would like you to read on page 1929, paragraph 12. Read that and tell me what it means to you. It's highlighted in yellow.
Very well. So I'm reading from the NMAC, Title 15. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is the Interstate Horse Racing Act, Section 3002. Under the definitions, horseman's group means, with reference to the applicable host racing association, the group which represents the majority of owners and trainers racing there, for the races subject to the interstate off-track wager on any racing day. That is what it says. And so, Commissioner Stiff, to your comment, your concern is that, does that comport with our rule?
Right.
The answer is it does, because the rule simply says that simulcasting shall be conducted in accordance with the Interstate Horse Racing Act. By definition, if the simulcasting violates the approvals required by a horseman's group, it violates your rules.
The Horseman Group is the majority of owners and trainers racing there. So they have to be a trainer or an owner to be on that committee to sign a simulcast.
Commissioner Smith, there's not a lot of case law, but there is some on the ins and outs of how to define a horseman's group. And I'm not an expert on that. which is why this rule is fairly straightforward. That is, it must comply with the Interstate Horse Racing Act. What the intent of this rule and this definition is clear, though, is that this is it's a factual determination. Depends on what's going on at that particular track, as to how it's defined, as to who's considered to calculate the majority. I do not know that. I cannot tell you that sitting here today. And there's folks who who specialize in this area who may have an opinion on that, but we certainly will be careful. So the intent here is to change this rule to reflect that we don't know. And it's not this commission's province to decide who the Horsemen's group is at a particular location.
It is up to the associations to decide that, right?
As to who decides it, that is not crystal clear under the rules either, or the federal statute, but it's clear that this commission does not.
Izzy, how do you see it?
Yeah, Chairman Smith, Commissioners, Izzy Trejo, Director of the New Mexico Racing Commission. By definition in the Interstate Horse Racing Act, it's the Horsemen's group is defined as a group of horsemen that represent a majority of the people participating at that race meet. Maybe not verbatim, but so it technically can change every race meet. Ruidoso, Sunray, Albuquerque, Sunland, and Zia. It realistically, it can change because of the way the Interstate Horse Racing Act is written.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be one specific group for the whole state all year.
So our rule change basically says interstate simulcasting shall be conducted in accordance with Interstate Horse Racing Act 1978.
Doesn't get any simpler than that.
Pretty cut and dried, right?
Yes, sir.
And the rest of this is going to be at the court's ruling. The federal court is going to rule on if this is all kosher.
I believe there's litigation in place right now, but as far as this goes,
That's not what the commission, the
No.
litigation is between the associations and the Horsemen's group, right?
If I may. Yeah, Commissioner Smith, whatever litigation is pending, there is no litigation pending on the definition of what a horseman.
Oh, I know. I understand that.
And so,
But I just want to let them know the problem is not with the commission. It's between the associations and the tracks. Right?
that does appear to be the case, yes. And that the commission's role is not to get involved. That the commission wants to have in rule that it can enforce if a particular track is not negotiating with what should be the Horsemen's group at that track, for that race. That is all. They can, if there is a dispute between between the Horsemen's Association and a particular track as to who the Horsemen's group is at that particular track, that is for them to figure out. That is not for this commission to decide.
But it is this commission's to make sure it's in accordance with the law, state law,
I mean,
federal law,
correct.
and state rules and regulations. That's why we're changing this to stay
Out of it.
the federal law.
Correct. And the way the rule is currently written, it refers to the Horsemen's Association specifically as requiring their approval. That would presume that the Horsemen's Association is the Horsemen's group as defined under the federal act. And that is an improper supposition. It may be, now that may be the case for a given race, for a given track, but as a matter of a general rule, no, it is not.
Let me think.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. So I appreciate the questions.
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions regarding the rule? Yes, Commissioner Petrie.
But I wonder if I could direct it to either Ms. Pam or Ms. Denise.
Sure.
Say, Ms. Pam, you say you're a secretary treasurer. How long have you been a member of the?
Of the Horsemen's Association?
Yes.
Oh, since I first got my license back in 2012,
And how long have you been secretary treasurer?
Oh, I've only been the secretary treasurer. I've been the secretary treasurer since last July.
Okay, is that when you have an annual meeting in July?
Yes.
You have elections?
We do. We have elections. Basically, how it works is that when a new meet starts, we have an election 2 weeks afterwards, just a general open election at that racetrack. And we pick 4 owners and we pick 4 trainers, and they become a local committee. Their job is to hear complaints or to do sponsor dinners or whatever. They form a little committee. Out of that committee, they pick 2 representatives that go to the state board level. Okay, so that means, so with the 5 tracks, we have 40 people on 5 committees, and we have 8 people at the state board level. And of those, we pick a president, a vice president, a secretary treasurer.
And so you applied to be in this association? You make application?
I applied to be, no, how it works and has.
How do you join your association?
You get a racing commission license and you're automatically a member. It's been like that.
The person doesn't have a choice.
Well, I guess, yes, you have a choice at each race.
How do you opt out?
There at each racetrack, there is a paper in the Horsemen's bookkeeper office, and it just says, I choose to opt out of the racing, out of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association. We kept that there when we were getting our funding, when the 1%, the 2%, yeah, we left it there. So before you picked up your check or whatever, you had the option, well, if you're going to get a 1% of our money, you have the right to say, no, I don't want to do that. But you automatically become a member. That's how it's been since 1966. And I agree. I'm by the law. I've checked this out throughout the country too with affiliates and how do you become a member? And it's always the same. Just by joining the commission, just by getting a license, you automatically, but you're also eligible to benefits. I mean, we give everyone medical benefits and there's no cost to you. So that's kind of how it is. And it's, it's a great program and it works, but that's what we do. We represent the Horsemen. We are elected at each racetrack. And then we get together and as we have a state board meeting every single month, and it's open to everyone. And then we talk weekly to our committees. They're supposed to get around the backside, see if there's anything that needs improvement or, anything. So we just want to continue going how we're going.
If a owner opts out, but you say you elect 2 weeks after the meeting, he can he still serve on a committee if he opts out?
No.
But okay, sure, wear that.
Yeah. No, we're not like some people say, well, we can just go. Some of the tracks have formed their own committees. Okay, they've just picked a handful of committees. I don't want to get into all the legalities. I know that's all litigation. But they have picked a few people and just assigned them and said, this is my Horsemen's committee. I'm not going to use the New Mexico Horsemen's Association committee. I'm going to use these. And I have said, well, I guess you have the right to do that, but that's not how we were started. We were elected. You just handpicked someone. You didn't have an election. And if you're going to do that, are you also going to be the one that writes the medical checks? Are you going to be the one that the racetracks all send us a small percentage of their simulcast money? And we use that money to pay medical benefits to our people that need them.
So you're saying the tracks are appointing people that are not members of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association?
They could be members of the Mexico. They have to be if they have a license, they haven't opted out.
Okay,
but as part of that, like I'm saying, if they are going to be the committee, then they should fulfill all the obligations of that committee. Being, we're going to help them. We're going to stand up for them. We're going to write checks for their medical benefits. We're going to represent them at meetings like this. I mean, we try to do a little bit of it. And so that's why we've done this since 1966. And I know everyone knows we are the Horsemen. I know that's presumptive on my part, and I shouldn't be saying that, but because of all this mess that's going on in court. But we just want to do our job. We want to represent the Horsemen. And on what you're talking about, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that rule could change from track to track. Let's say at Ruidoso, they decide, well, Rick has picked his, and so we're going to let them do that. So then that reflects his name of his group, which is the Ruidoso Local Horsemen's Committee or something. Then if we go to Sunray, and Sunray says, we're going to pick our own track and we're going to call them. So then why wouldn't we have to change the rule again? And so then, and it goes from track to track. So I don't really know why the conflict started. I think it's ridiculous. I think we should all be working together, like I told you. And I've talked to Rick, I've talked to Don Cook. I mean, I've talked to everybody there, and they'll say, well, you know, I need people that I know and I trust. And a lot of your people are from out of town or out of state. Well, that's true. But if we face the facts, the owners of the tracks all live out of state. So I don't want to keep the little jabbing that's going on. I just want to represent my horsemen. That's all I want to do.
One last question, then I'm done. What percentage of New Mexico Horsemen's Association also belong to New Mexico Breeders Association?
Oh, breeders have, I think they've got a membership of around 1,000. And as far as, I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know that question. You know, they say that if you are a breeder, horseman, but if you're a horseman, you're not automatic breeder, because all of the horsemen don't breed horses. They passed a law that now they have to join in order to get the year-end awards. But before it was like, you know, well, if we're going to breed them, we're going to, you know.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question. How did this all start?
How did what?
How did all this controversy start? How did it start? Do you have any idea?
Really? On the record?
Yeah.
I think there was some conflict back in maybe 2020 between our current director and then your current chairman and our current director.
Not right now.
No, I'm sorry, not our current director. Our previous executive director had some issues with your head.
What happened?
We got rid of ours.
I don't understand that, but what happened? Who started?
Well, the Horsemen filed the first lawsuit.
Okay, that's
Yes,
what I'm hearing.
yes, definitely. But I'm here to end it. I'll do that. So we've got to work it out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for any for staff? No, okay, I do see some raised hands. I try to be as inclusive as possible. I know that I thought we had completed public comment. Ms. Chavez, it looks like there's 2 more public commenters. People.
Well, it's the same. The other one is different.
Mr. Lohman. I'm sorry, who was the other one?
There's one is Vanessa Alexander
Okay.
and the other one is Lynette Baldwin.
Okay, well, we haven't heard from Ms. Baldwin, but in the abundance of caution, and I think in being inclusive, let's give Ms. Baldwin an opportunity to make public comment. Ms. Baldwin, we're muting you. If you could confirm your name and affiliation, if any.
My name is Lynette Baldwin. I've been a trainer since 1970. I've been a trainer in New Mexico for about 20 years. No matter what the commission or what you people decide to do over this simulcast thing, it's a very small percentage that we're getting. And for one thing, the host tracks do very little to encourage our signal to go out or to bring a lot of signals in. So it's kind of a reciprocating between who picks up our signal and who sends the signal back. But the bottom line is, everything that happens, there are states that have chosen to support the New Mexico Horsemen. We have no control over that. It's their decision not to send their signal. And you guys can make up and change as many rules as you want, but that's the bottom line. You cannot control that. If Kentucky and Indiana and Arizona and Washington and everybody else decides not to send their signal to New Mexico, that's out of your hands. And like I say, you guys can keep changing your rules and doing what you think you need to do, but unless things get better in New Mexico, those people will continue to hold their signal and not send it to New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldwin. All right. And I do see that Ms. Alexander has her hand raised, but she has already provided public comment. I will ask, though, if Ms. Alexander wishes, if you could unmute her for a moment. We technically do allow public commenters to question other people who have made public comment. Ms. Alexander,
Can you hear me?
Yes, do you wish to question someone who has made public comment?
I sure do.
Okay,
Miss
who do you
Senna.
wish? Miss Senna. Okay, Miss Senna, if you could, why don't you come a little closer to the microphone, Miss Senna? Okay, Miss Alexander, you have the floor, if you wish to question Miss Senna.
Miss Senna, you were just asked by Commissioner Petrie in regard to what quote unquote caused the controversy between the Horsemen and the commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
isn't it
No,
true?
I got it. I was asked by Mr. Smith,
Commissioner Smith.
Commissioner Smith.
I apologize, one of the commissioners. Isn't it true that the controversy, it was a lawsuit filed in December of 2020 regarding some $8 million that the tracks had been allowed to skim out of the purses by the Racing Commission?
Yes, that was the lawsuit. I wasn't here then, so I'm assuming that was the reason of
That's
the
the
lawsuit.
answer. That was the answer, Ms. Senna.
Miss Alexander, I will ask that you not berate this witness if she doesn't know the answer or gives you an answer that you don't agree with. That's, you do not argue with another person in this proceeding. Thank you.
And I
All right.
don't understand why you would say I was arguing. I was just simply correcting her and the record. Isn't it true that Judge O'Connell, I'm sorry, it was Judge Victor Lopez, found that the purses had indeed been illegally skimmed by the tracks and the Racing Commission of that $8 million? Isn't that the truth?
I believe so.
Okay, that is a fact.
Okay.
Excuse me one moment. So the definition of representation, isn't it true that the Horsemen's Association is legally registered with the state of New Mexico?
Yes.
So you do exist completely as an entity. You have bylaws, you have a membership, you have voting.
Yes.
Okay.
All of the above. Yes.
All of the above. So that
Not-
would the definition of representation, would it not? The
I would
United
assume
States.
so. It would get, that gives you a definition of a legal entity. We're a nonprofit. Yes.
Well, so what I'm understanding here is that where there's some word games going on. The word represent doesn't mean a benign dictatorship. Okay, represent means that there are candidates, memberships, bylaws, and
Miss
voting.
Alexander, I'm going to
for that
interrupt you here.
representation.
Miss Alexander, there is some decorum I need to maintain, and you're not asking proper questions. You are testifying again. So you could ask this witness if she knows the answer to a question, if she knows a certain fact, and then you move on, please. I'm not asking you to state.
Am I not allowed to preface a question?
Yes, but you are going beyond that with
Well,
I
you're
can tell it's
attempting to censor-
testimony. No, I'm not. I'm just trying to maintain the decorum of this rulemaking. So please ask a question, but please try to be succinct.
Yes, we represent the Horsemen. We're a legitimate organization. She gone?
No, I'm here. They muted me. So my question to you, okay, so we're pretty clear. We live in the United States. We are a republic, which means we have laws, we have votes, we have candidates, we have elections. Do you agree or disagree that a handpicked group of essentially puppets that do not officially exist with the state?
That's it. Turn this
They
on.
have no
I'm not
membership,
refer to
no
anyone as
bylaws,
puppets.
no votes, not
Miss
representation.
Alexander, I'm going to object to that. I'm not going to allow that question. It is an improperly formulated question.
No, you're
Thank you.
cowards and you don't want to hear the. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Ms. Chavez, please do not mute her. Okay?
Hey, we don't have to listen to that.
We're not going to listen. I'm not going to let her ask that question.
She just did. And she called puppets and stooges and everything else. I'm not going to listen to it anymore.
Commissioner Smith, there is a certain First Amendment right that people have to tell public officials things they just necessarily don't want to hear. He is exercising that First Amendment right now. I do not want to get in the way of that. But what the limitation we do have is this hearing needs to continue in a manner that we will continue it and finish it at some point. and she cannot ask questions that are insult the witness or that are argumentative. And I mean, I know what a proper question sounds like, and that is not it. So, Ms. Alexander, you can try another question.
Vanessa, I'm not going to call the five gentlemen, if you're referring to as puppets. I mean, they're fellow horsemen.
Who are
For
they?
whatever
They're
reason, for
So
whatever
that's my
reason.
question.
What is your question, Ms. Alexander?
These are handpicked individuals whose
Agreed.
sole purpose, their sole purpose is to sign a simulcast contract prepared by the tracks. They
Okay.
do not legally exist. They have no bylaws. They are not elected. That is not representation.
And Ms.
It is not
Alexander,
what the word
are you-
representation means.
okay.
You know,
Are you
and the
asking-
fact that you guys are, the fact that I am asking these questions that you are so afraid of, okay? I mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, it's like if you cannot listen, okay, to what you have caused, the havoc and the damage.
Ms.
that this
Alexander,
commission
please
has
stop.
caused.
Please, all right. I'll have to resort to muting you, Ms. Alexander. You're not asking questions anymore. You're just arguing. And this is not the place for that. You had your opportunity to make public comment. You do have
No,
a separate opportunity, Ms.
No, we
Alexander.
don't. That's the thing. You banned public comment.
Okay.
Okay. You have banned public comment. You have banned us from having any type of say in any of the
I'm sorry you
stunts
feel
this
that way.
commission is pulling.
Ms.
Sir, I
Alexander.
don't feel this way. I think
Okay.
that almost 100 lawsuits
Ms.
filed
Chavez,
against
you
this
will need to mute
commission
her.
would explode into some others.
Okay. Ms. Alexander, I'm sorry I had to mute you, but you left me no choice. If you have any more questions for this witness, I will let you ask a question, but it has to be a proper question. It cannot presume all kinds of facts that are not in evidence. And it needs to be a question that this witness can answer. Based on her testimony. So I will unmute you. And please do not argue with me. If you have a question, please ask it. Okay, we'll unmute you.
Well, okie dokie then. So again, Miss Senna, my question, if I can please finish without being interrupted. A hand-picked group of individuals that do not officially exist. They have no membership, no bylaws, there are no votes. Their sole purpose to sign a simulcast contract agreement prepared by the racetracks. Is that representation of the majority of the horsemen, the owners, the trainers at that track? Do you believe that that is the definition of representing the majority of the owners and trainers at that track?
No, Vanessa, we know that that's not.
Thank you. My last question. The applications for owners or trainers rather to participate at a meet. These trainers have to sign an application stating that their owners have given them permission to act as their agents, and in turn, by signing this stall application, the trainers are also saying that they are allowing the racetracks to represent them. That doesn't ring, trying to think of the proper word to not make anybody cry here, but it doesn't feel like there are any type of representation choices by these contracts, I guess, applications, that the horsemen are essentially being forced to sign. Is that representation, representative, or is that essentially extortion? If you don't sign this, then you don't get to come play in our sandbox.
Sen, if you can answer whether that's representation or not, and then if you wish, you could say whether that's extortion, but it's not a either or.
10 minutes.
I'm going to say that that is currently under debate. We're working on that with the racetracks, Vanessa. It's not a good situation that they are supposed to sign. The trainers are supposed to sign saying they represent their owners. but really believe they have to have permission of the owners to represent them. So that's all being dealt with right now. But it's a big concern, and it's unfortunate.
I don't think it's unfortunate, it's intentional.
Okay, Ms. Alexander, any other questions for this or any other witness?
No, I think I've made my point.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like there are there any other persons who wish to question anyone else who's made public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will then proceed. Let's see. Okay, we've already heard comment. Do we have any other questions from the commission? Okay,
I have one question.
Ms. Chambliss,
Mr. Petrie.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Ms. Chambliss, unfortunately, the way this is established, you cannot question the public body.
So I was just going to ask, he'd asked a question about membership in the NMHA.
Oh, okay. And you wish to respond to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, I'm trying to get as much information as I
That
can.
makes sense.
What I did when this first came up in court or whatever the heck it was. So I went and I researched all the other states' affiliates, their membership in their horsemen's groups for those particular states. I think 9 out of 10 of them that I researched all came with the same. Once you receive your racing license from that state, you're automatically a member of that horsemen's group for that state. Now there's different ways that they do it. Some of them say, okay, now you're automatically a member, and then here's all your benefits that you get. But New Mexico based theirs on another state. And I don't know when, because I was back in the 60s and I wasn't born at that time, but they had to get it from somewhere. And it's exactly the same when they established the New Mexico Breeders Association, the Horse Breeders Association. Commissioner Sanchez, Raymond Sanchez, Speaker Sanchez, and 3 or 4 other gentlemen went to Louisiana. Somehow they did set up their breed association, came back here, made a few tweaks, and set up the New Mexico Horse Breeders Association. That still exists today based on what Louisiana did and what Speaker Sanchez and the group, I think it was Casey Darnell, wasn't it? They came back and did all that, and that's how they set up here. So that's how the New Mexico Horsemen Association established how you become a member of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association, based on other states from way back when. And I went and I researched all their websites, and it reads identical. And I can send you, if you want, their website addresses, but you'll see exactly how their membership is. It's exactly how our membership is here. Once you get your racing license from the state, you automatically become a member of the state.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I do not see any further comments. Well,
Better hand up.
I do see Vanessa Alexander with her hand up. Based upon Ms. Chambliss, I'm sorry, but you've given some public comment that leaves you open to questioning. Ms. Alexander, your hand is raised. I will allow you to now question Ms. Chambliss if that is that your intent, ma'am?
It is, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Chambliss, just so the world can hear you, if you could stand closer to the microphone or sit if that's your pleasure. One second, Ms. Algo, 1 second. We have a technical issue here. I don't see the screen. It just says Bluetooth.
It says Bluetooth settings.
Bluetooth settings.
Mine does?
No, this is just a question for Ms. Chavez. What we're seeing here, for the benefit of the audience, we've lost the screen that shows everyone who's logged in.
My screen doesn't show that.
Okay. So Ms. Chavez, your screen shows who has a hand raised at least. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll proceed with that as long as we have Ms. Chavez. Okay, Ms. Alexander, please go ahead and ask your question. Or question.
Ms. Chambliss, you're familiar with a publication called Blood Horse?
Yes.
there was a comment published January 31st of this year, and I'm going to read it. It's a quote pertaining to Director Trejo and one of the many private attorneys that are retained by this commission. The quote says, Trejo and Eric Lohman, an attorney who represents the Racing Commission, said the commission got complaints from owners that they never agreed to the 1% deduction. The commission responded by directing the racetracks to stop automatically applying the 1% deduction in May of 2021. Now, do you recall that quote when it was made?
I read that back in January and I don't recall it.
Okay.
I read something in January. I don't recall the.
So my question would be that I have sought the proof of any kind of complaints that were made regarding that 1%, and then of course the
Alexander,
actions by the commission after that.
Ms. Alexander, that's not a proper, Ms. Alexander, that's an argumentative question. Can you restate it?
Sir, just seriously, the Racing Commission has no record of any complaints of any kind that resulted in this assault. As I understand, and maybe you can clarify, please, how many people have actually ever opted out of being a member of the Horsemen's Association in the half a century of existence?
14.
14.
I know they've actually handwritten or sent an email opting out.
Were any of those opting out between the dates of, say, December of 2020 through 2022?
I have absolutely no idea.
No idea. Do you know if any of those who opted out are current or former trustees on the New Mexico Horse Breeders Association?
I have no idea.
Do you think that the influence, covert or otherwise, by the trustees of the Horse Breeders Association in the actions, the detrimental actions against the horsemen, do you think that this comment regarding—
Ms. Alexander, that's an argumentative question. Please try again.
Oh, sir, I'm not a trial lawyer. I'm just a stupid peasant trying to get some answers.
I understand, but you do not put an argument in your question. Try again.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Chambliss, would you agree that current and former members of the Horse Breeders Association that had, I'll just use the word covert conversations, off the record conversations with the tracks and commission to circumvent state and federal law to erase the Horsemen's Association from NMAC and replace it with the Horse Breeders Association, do you think it would be of interest if any of those—
Thank you.
Ms. Alexander, you're not a lawyer,
I don't know
but
what word that
ask her what you'd like her to agree with, I suppose. But as you're not an attorney, but neither is this witness, so I have to protect her.
It's a yes/no question. It's yes or no.
You've spent the last 3 minutes asking a question. You're going to say it's yes or no? That's not credible.
You interrupted me for 50% of it.
Because I had to stop a question that wasn't making sense. So I'll give you one more try, Ms. Alexander. Can you ask a yes or no question? If you wanted to agree with you on something, ask what you'd like her to agree with.
I don't want her to agree with. I want her to ask a question. I want her to answer.
Okay,
I'm not
try your question.
I'm not here to make friends.
I have no idea.
Okay.
So the claim by Mr. Trejo and Mr. Lohman that this assault on the Horsemen's Association was prompted by complaints. There's no evidence of these complaints. Would it be, would you agree or not? Is yes or no? Do you think that these folks that have decided to opt out of the Horsemen's Association, that also happen to be members of the Breeders Association, who had the covert conversations with the commission and racetrack. Do you think that's holds water if there's no proof of any complaints?
Ms. Chambliss, if you feel you can answer that question, you can. If not, do the best you can. And if you can't answer it, you can't answer it.
I have nothing to base it on.
Okay.
I mean, I have not been able to do any research. I have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if the commission admits that there's no evidence of any of these complaints that Trejo and Lohman are quoted in the media saying, doesn't that sound a little untruthful? Would you agree with if I was to say something to the media saying that, yes, I got complaints and therefore that's why I decided to wipe this association off the face of the earth, and there's no evidence? Would you perhaps agree that that was a lie?
I can't answer that because I have not done any research. I don't fly
Well,
off the handle and
you can answer it.
Okay.
Let's just do it
Ms.
hypothetically.
Alexander, she's giving.
I'm not
the
doing
answer.
hypothetical.
Ms. Alexander, she's giving you the answer. It may not be the answer you want. She may not be able to answer your question the way you formatted it. You've gotten your answer. Are there any other questions you have, ma'am? And I ask also that we refrain from sidebar. This is an open meeting. Let's be careful about that. So, Ms. Alexander, do you have any other questions?
No, I would like just to kind of repeat the question to Ms. Chambliss if she
already-
would believe. Excuse me?
I'm not going to ask you to repeat the same question. Do you have a different question?
No.
Okay.
You know what? Let it
Can't-
roll.
I can't answer something I don't know anything about.
Okay, Ms. Chambliss, thank you for your patience. All right, so I think that's all the questions. I don't see any other hands raised. Do any members of the commission have any more questions for Ms. Chambliss? Okay, thank you. So, being no other comments, no other questions by the commission or members of the public, I will now ask Ms. Chavez. You have a list of all the individuals who submitted written comments for today's rule hearing?
Do.
Okay. And do you have that prepared as an exhibit?
I do not have the list, but I can tell you we only received one written comment, and that was from Gary Mitchell, representative of the New Mexico Horsemen's Association.
Okay, so I have in front of me here a letter from Mr. Mitchell dated May 1st, 2024. It looks like there's a lot of attachments. It goes on for at least 30 pages or so. Is that the one comment we received?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to make that exhibit 4 as the sum of all written comments. Okay, Ms. Chavez, do you have a list of the attendance sheet for today's rulemaking hearing?
Do so.
Okay, and if we can, I'd like to have that admitted as exhibit 5.
Okay.
So if we could have that, I don't know if you have stickers or something, but we can, exhibits 4 and 5. Okay. So the public comments submitted and heard during today's rule hearing will be considered and discussed by the commission during the open public meeting immediately following today's hearing. And then the commission will formally vote on the proposed rules during that public meeting. Any adopted rule will include a concise explanatory statement that can be provided to any individuals who participated in the hearing today. If you want the concise explanatory statement of any adopted rules, please send your email addresses to Ms. Chavez at denisem.chavez@rc.nm.gov. The entire rulemaking record can also be found on the Racing Commission website. Very well, let the record show that this public rule hearing was adjourned today at, and I give, the clock is correct, 2:15, 2:14. Is that correct?
2:16.
2:16. Thank you. I thank everyone here for their time and their public comments. So with that, I will now open up the rules for discussion by the commissioners. And so you may recall from our previous rulemaking hearing, this is where you get to talk as a quorum, decide what you want to do about this rule. As your counsel, I'm not providing testimony, but if you have questions for me as your attorney, I'm happy to oblige with answers. But at this point, public comment, witnesses are already in the record. So what are your thoughts, gentlemen?
I just want to make sure that we know that everything we're doing today is before a federal court. So if we make the decision to pass this, they can overturn that. We know that, right?
If you promulgate this rule, it could be appealed. Any rule could be appealed for any reason, whether a court would find any credence in it. I believe it appears to me, I can advise you that the State Rules Act has been complied with respect to notice of this hearing. I anticipate staff will comply with it with respect to the statement of the concise explanatory statement that it will be published duly in the register. So procedurally, I think we're on solid ground. As to the merits, I can tell you this. What we heard today was, boy, there seems to be a lot of dispute as to what a horseman's group is between the association and other members of the public that seem concerned. Not your fight. That's what I'm hearing. And as to what constitutes a horseman's group, if you can opt in, if the opt-out provision is proper under federal law, I don't know. You don't know. And the nice thing about this rule is drafted, as I see it, is whatever the federal law ultimately is, whatever the courts decide it is, they got to comply with it. That's all your rule says.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
As opposed to it specifying, strongly implying, if not just flat out stating, that the NMHA is somehow the horseman's group as defined under federal law. It may well be. And maybe the argument could be made that they are automatically because of how they define membership. We don't know the answer to that, nor is that our problem.
That's up to the attorneys.
That's up to their attorneys.
Their attorneys and our attorneys, right?
By our attorneys, we're not going to get, if you're asking me as your attorney, if we're going.
Not the commission's attorneys.
Oh, okay.
I should say the association's attorneys. That's between their attorneys and the association attorney, not us.
That is, yes, that is how I see it. And I think that's the correct way to look at it.
I don't see how you could be opposed to a rule that says you're gonna follow the Interstate Horse Racing Act of 1978. I mean, that's about as simple and plain as you can get. And follow those rules. So to me, it's like,
I agree with that.
It's just like, that's what we're going to do. That's what the rule change is too. There's some stuff in the old rules that could be debatable, whether it was appropriate or proper and all that. Cleaning that up, getting all that language out. There was a sentence in there that said, if the Horsemen's Association tracks can't agree, the Racing Commission would decide. Clearly, that's not what we're doing. That's not appropriate to have in there. So we're trying to clean this up. It says we're going to follow the proper act, and that's what it's about.
Okay, I can tell you that I looked at other states, and either by rule or by statute, a lot of other states take this approach. They say you have to comply with the Interstate Horse Racing Act. That's all it says. I mean, some of them go into the horse, saying more specifically, there must be a proper agreement with the horsemen's group as a prerequisite for simulcasting, which is the intent of the federal law, but there's no reason to even go that far. And a lot of states don't.
And the other comment, the simulcast agreements are between the racetracks, and it's not the Racing Commission.
Ma'am, that's okay.
We do approve those, but we approve those. And I kind of see we're getting twisted into it's the Racing Commission. It's the Racing Commission. It ain't the Racing Commission. Okay? It's the simulcast agreement. And we don't do that.
Okay. Well, you could see why staff felt like this should be its own hearing.
Yes, I can.
So with that, are there any proposed amendments to the rule as drafted? Okay.
Is
there a motion to adopt the proposed Rule 15.2.710 as proposed to be amended by staff?
Make the motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it. Mr. Smith?
Okay, let's have a roll call vote on that, please.
John Buffington,
Yes.
Billy Smith,
Yes.
Bob Petrie,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to thank the commission for your patience and your understanding today and everyone else present for their participation and attendance. Any rules adopted by the commission will be filed at the state records and archives in accordance with the State Rules Act and the New Mexico Register publication deadlines. The adopted rules become effective on the date of publication in the New Mexico Register. And we will ask staff to prepare a concise explanatory statement, which will be succinct as there is no departure from what was noticed to what was approved. Let the record show. Let me turn this meeting back over to Vice Chair Smith. I have nothing further, sir.
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Turned off yet?
I think so.
Wait till we get turned off.
Recording stopped.